Mr. Rensberger.
Yes.
Mr. Rensberger.
Oh, me, I'm Feldon, but yeah.
I'm sorry.
I can vote for Terry. I'm
I'm
here.
trying to get this back
I'm
on.
here. Here it is.
All right.
They're calling you Terry.
All right, let's move back around. Dr. Garcia. Here. Mr. Rensberger.
I'm here.
Very good. So we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. You have any questions to go with?
Yes, I'll actually Jeanette tell you about that.
Yeah, so we had, in addition for our second pay app for, the first pay app for the, center project, was not originally, inserted into the bill list. We went back in and, have paid that. It is for $111,570. So we have added that to the bill.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Well, first of all, does anybody have any requests to pull any item off the consent agenda? Right, in that case, do I have a motion?
I will move to approve with correction.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Next on the agenda is the director's report.
So we continue our renovations at Center. They're moving along nicely. Some shape down there, they're getting the new windows in, and if you'll recall, there was some water damage around most of those windows, which required we replaced everything. They did kind of expect to find water damage below the sills, and they're not finding that, so that's good news for us. LaSalle, we're almost done. We're meeting tomorrow for the final page turn where we look at all of the drawings and really work our way through that last detail before we release those for bid. We should see approval for that at next month's meeting. We will need to close that location for the renovation, and we are making plans for the building staff and patrons, including making sure Success Academy and Career Academy know where we'll be placing. And then we'll start focusing on Western. We talked a little bit about our incident reports, which are, we are seeing those lighting up, but Kara and Jana were able to meet with the community resource officer from South Bend Police Department, thanks to some help from the mayor's office. And so they are really starting to make a good relationship there, which we're very happy about. Social workers started today, which is very exciting. Haley.
Hagbert. Hagbert. Thank you. I was on a call today and they said, oh, the library has a social worker. No, it has a right now.
I think she's in the,
I know, but I didn't do it.
So we are working with a new senior center that's opening. I think they're having a grand opening tomorrow with Real Services and the Portage Township Trustee. Her team actually has arranged for donated books to create a library there, and they'll be offering some programming there as well. Sent six staff members to Indiana Library Federation Food Services Conference. Some of their favorite sessions. Do I have to read the whole book? For 5 to 10 year olds. STEM programming for everyone and building bridges through literacy. And I'm just starting to get those reports back. I saw them from yesterday. Excuse me. North Liberty, I went to their library after dark program, which was really cool, in addition to their string laser maze, which they had set up between shelves. It looked like out of Spy Kids, like you had the time within, but they also had like rocks where you could shine a black light on them and see whatever, you could, like glowy stuff. I don't know the science words for them, but they were teaching the kids the science words.
Was that all done in-house by the folks, by our staff?
By our staff, yep.
What they-
Yeah, North Liberty along with them, always helps with those events.
Arizona, there's scorpions.
Are there really? We did not have any scorpions at our events, and you know.
Right.
So we had our second culturally speaking author with co-sponsor with Duchess of Tina at the University of Notre Dame. Maria Carlson was the guest speaker. And if you're interested in local authors, on Saturday is our book con, which is will be bigger and better.
So fun to actually talk to the authors. Of course, they want to tell you everything about themselves.
They do, sometimes you have to move to the next author. We're seeing an increase in the use of this space for conference type events. So Unity Gardens had the entire space reserved for their growing summit, and coming up soon, Ideal Week will have the entire building for one day of their event as well. So that's exciting. I think that was the intent of this building, in addition to all of those smaller events. And then, of course, we continue in the uncertainty of everything that's happening with legislation, both on the state level and the federal level. There are no updates on property tax reform. We don't know what that's going to look like. You'll know when I know. Maybe if you watch the news. And then March 14th, presidential executive order. Really an intent to eliminate the Institute for Museum and Library Services along with some other institutions for anything that wasn't statutorily required. And you can make the case that all of the work they do is statutorily required, but that will take a turn. In the state of Indiana, that does impact many, many libraries that use Evergreen as their catalog that's subsidized by INLS. It subsidizes our interlibrary loan, the transportation that we use between libraries, that's subsidized by them. One of the really core services that they offer and supplement at the state level, but also through that institute, is services for the blind and visually impaired. So if you need Braille, if you need certain types of technology to help you listen to books, you can do that in the state library or through INLS. That is all at risk. Our database Inspire, which is one of many for us, but for small libraries here in the state of Indiana, that is their only database. And then the professional development office at the state library is funded in part by INLS. So it's not a good thing for libraries. Same sort of impact for museums, but of course, I know much less about that, but for libraries. All of these things, between the state and the federal, my biggest concerns are for small and rural communities, like Spencer, Indiana, town of 5,000. Their budgets are small and tight and close already. When you start picking away at funding like this, it can really impact a small town. Many small towns, the library is the place where people go to do things, to meet each other. That is that sort of community hub, which it is here too, but again, our resources are greater to begin with. So my concern is for small towns and small libraries across the state.
I have a question. Have we heard any more about Dolly Parton program?
It's still not being funded in the state budget. Last I heard that the governor wants his wife to fundraise for that, but there's a potential gap in funding while she gets it off the ground. They just started funding it 2 years ago in the last budget cycle. They just started funding, which is a help, of course, to the community foundation here, who's been doing it for years. But many other counties just got their programs off the ground and running, and then to have this happen, it will be really, really hard on them and all those kids under the age of 5, not getting books to their homes.
So in
Dolly Parton came out in opposition to Indiana and what they're doing. And it's probably not a good thing if you have Dolly Parton not on your side.
So remind me, so in St. Joe County, in addition to us, with Mr. Walker's got their library, but also near and dear to your heart, New Carlisle, where you were, is there one more in addition to New Carlisle or just?
Walkerton.
Walkerton. So I would think that New Carlisle and Walkerton can really be affected by these cuts.
I will say that Jen Herman, who's the director in Walkerton, was texting me after the IMLS news, and she's essentially told her board she doesn't think they'll be able to have a full-time librarian between the property tax reform, whatever that looks like, and IMLS. So she was already concerned. This just.
I mean, her position itself
Mhm.
may be at risk.
Reduced to part-time.
Wow. Well, how many other staff people?
I think she's full-time in the jail and full part-time staff. And I think you'll see that play out at small libraries across the state and probably across the country.
But here it's, but because of the Fed, this federal group office that's been abolished, basically, it's got to take away that funding, yeah.
Sure,
Right,
so,
that has the ripple effects, but they don't have the
Right.
services there. And then you compound that with this property tax thing that the governor's doing.
right, sure. So I want to say we pay maybe $100,000 a year for Sierra.
Mhm.
Is that right? Which is our catalog between that and Discovery Layer. So this type of database where we keep our books and our patrons is expensive. Evergreen is a model that a lot of small libraries use in Indiana that is subsidized by the state library with funds from IMLS. That's what they use for their cataloging and circulation. It's very low cost to them, maybe in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. It's based on your revenues.
Right.
It's tiered, so if you're a larger library, well-funded library, you pay more. If you have to start paying for that, when your budget, you're already working very tightly. Another librarian I heard say she'll just stop offering digital materials.
Right.
So I know, and that's based partially on property tax reform that would cap us at 0% increase. So the governor's not happy with that model. I would expect a final version of that bill to be more than, I would expect it to be a reduction.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know, maybe they won't get anything done, because maybe, I mean, they haven't come to consensus yet.
You have to be concerned the last day of session is when they add things in a conference committee that nobody even knows is there.
Well, they have to get out of committee. I don't know
Well,
the date
they can
before,
they
but
can just attach
on the
things.
floor.
You
they
can just
can,
attach, you can
yeah.
attach as amendments, anything.
Yep.
I used to do it. Well, I worked at the speaker's office in Kentucky for 2 sessions.
Mm.
We used to do that.
That may be something they shouldn't have in public.
It was neater than I'll get out.
So in the discussion, if someone were to ask more about why what are these impacts to the libraries? There are minutes, obviously. Where do you start, property tax and then the.
It does feel, because I will also say there's a Supreme Court hearing on the FCC and how they distribute funds down, which pays for E-rate funding, which affects broadband access at schools and libraries. Also, so if they say FCC is not distributing those funds correctly, that helps pay our internet bill every single month, plus IMLS. plus property tax reform. I just- It's just a hard time. I think I would start with public servants, know they work for the taxpayer. They work hard to provide the most services they possibly can for the money. And there's a real loss to communities when you start to lose your libraries. And I think ultimately that will happen.
I'm sure these discussions will come up, but I kind of like to be here.
Yeah, and I think there is this narrative right now of waste, fraud, and abuse, and I'm not gonna say there's none of that. Every organization, every business, every school, could find some ways to tighten their belt. But by and large, public servants come to work every day to make their communities better, and they work hard at doing that. So that might be where I start, because I think that's a narrative we need to turn around if we're gonna stop some of these other things.
Anything else on the director's report? Okay, in that case, I will entertain a motion to accept the director's report. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Director's report is approved.
I do have one question, but, it's still okay, you've already closed that off, but, the center branch is the completion date and the estimated, or are we still saying September?
Well, we told the public September.
Right.
We're hoping for soon, yeah. It looks like we're on track for soon, yeah. So,
I got people asking about.
sure.
I was down in the children's room the other day, and there was a mother there, and she said, I'm a Central Library refugee. I need to get all dramatic.
She's gonna love the little teardrop camper that's new out here.
So if someone were to ask me, if they could plan to schedule a room at center in September, would you tell them yes?
I wouldn't guarantee anybody anything because of the nature of construction, but I would say likely yes.
All right, moving on, financial report.
Patron engagement.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry.
We added page numbers to the monthly data report. They're on the bottom left corner.
Thank you.
For program highlight, I have a couple pictures from Science Alive. That was on February 3rd. And we had just under 3,000 people. It was one event. And I put a picture of Trevor the Minion. I know nothing about minions. And I don't really know if staff named that minion.
That's his name.
Okay.
That's his name. The characters.
I thought it was fun that the children's top title was Happy Valentine's Day for Race George. I feel like that book has been around for so long. It's just so cool that it's so popular. And then for page 2, Maine saw a 63% increase in visitors since February 2023, which is incredible. And Lakeville and Tutt both continue to see an increase in visitors with around 20%. And that's the Center Township patrons that are heading over that way. Page 3, February's total circulation has been holding steady around 160,000 for the past 3 years. And about 60% is physical materials and 40% digital.
Which, by the way, is flip-flopped from many cities. Many cities are seeing a much larger percent in digital circulation than print. I don't know, it's just an interesting data point to me that we haven't flipped to the digital more than print.
And on page 4, both Lakeville and Tutt are also seeing a big increase in program attendance, with Lakeville at 17%, which doesn't seem like a lot, but for Lakeville, ads program attendance increased by 27%. And then I wanted to highlight our SE Ready program, which you've all heard about before. It's connecting students with library resources from kindergarten through third grade, but I wanted to give you some stats.
We do interviews a lot in the room right behind the shooter. So it's really fun to see on the shooter, see him fly by.
And I will say, the staff that work down there, the patience that they have with these kids, group after group after group. Will stand.
Out of the box and they wave and it's.
They just do an amazing job.
Any questions on the patron engagement report? Now, we'll move to financial report. Ms. Dancy.
All right, so we have the fund report and the appropriations report. A couple highlights, not anything super exciting maybe. But, so if you'll notice in our contractual, last year, we did put some dollars for the construction projects into some investment CDs. Those are going to have already started beginning to mature. So next month, you'll see that investment method will go down. However, then the ending balance will still go up because we will have interest that has matured on those. So there's one thing I want you to notice, that we did have those investments, those will be coming to fruition in the next couple of months. Nothing real exciting yet on the expenditures. We're moving pretty much as usual, as I would expect at the beginning of the year. I will say that what I'm watching right now is obviously the tariffs. And as we walk into the construction projects, what is that impact going to be on our appropriations, on what we budgeted so far? Right now, we've had a few things that have come through that we noticed that we had some tariff dollars added onto it, but nothing of huge impact, but we are paying attention. I also listened to a webinar from Baker Tilly on the tariffs and how they can, what to watch as you're doing your construction projects. And it may not just only be materials, it could be labor, just watching those things as we get ready to bid the second project and to really start moving on the other ones. Yes.
So I assume when we did this out, we had a fixed dollar contract, but are there provisions in there that if they get hit with the tariff increase for lumber or something, that they can pass that on to us? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we need to, when we look at the new bids and the new projects, we do need to make sure that we're looking at the contingencies, and when those change orders come to the board, we need to really look at those closer.
The center, we bid out
And so
the
center is,
conversation, so that's already the price that it is.
and I remember one of the things you said when we did that out, you anticipated this could happen, and so you said you wanted to get it out there before this hit. So we don't have to worry about that.
We didn't get it out before. the tariffs.
Oh, we did not. So, but there's no contingencies. If their price goes up after they've given us a fixed dollar,
Correct.
they can't pass it on. Okay.
But I think what we're seeing is uncertainty in construction pricing right now in general, because they just don't know how to put it. Anytime it's uncertain, it makes it harder for them to give you a price. So we'll see. And however, with Sal goes, we'll get a better sense of how Western's gonna go.
Not really much power, electricity, those types of things are really kind of status quo right now. Nothing overly exciting at 2 or 3 months in at all. And then Trust Indiana, as I try to pull some information here and there, we are at a 4.29% yield with Trust Indiana right now, and which is holding very well. Even inflation has not gone up as quickly as we thought, but I think everyone's still holding our breath. to see what's gonna happen, but do have a good deal there. We also were able to get, some interest rates on the bond, accounts that we hold at First Source. We decided not to move those into Trust Indiana, just because, when we get to the end of the bond with arbitrage and things like that, it's just easier to leave it in one bank account, but we'd like to get a little bit of interest on it, so they were able to give us a nice rate, with those bond accounts. So, if there's any other questions?
Questions? All right, so I will entertain a motion to accept both the pay trend engagement report and the finance report. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, those reports are approved. Unfinished business. Do you have any unfinished business? No unfinished business. Okay, on new business, so we'll start with the security framework policies.
So this is an update to our video surveillance policy, and Lisa provided the updated as well as the current one. It's just a little more robust in determining who can access it, when and where. Myra did have a look at that and make sure we are, that it's a good solid legal policy as well. So I just sent that for your approval.
The videos we changed to 30 days.
Yes.
Cameras, people who sound recorded, they don't do it.
Correct. They're capable.
Okay, any other questions?
The values, the video surveillance policy.
All in favor of approving the security framework policy, please say aye. Opposed? Policy is approved. All right, next, the computer and internet use policy.
Good afternoon. This year we are recommending no changes to the computer and internet use policy section of the public services policy. This policy concerns library and teaching responsibilities regarding public computer use, including confidentiality, user responsibilities, wireless access, and time limits.
Questions? Okay, do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Policy is approved. Next, internal controls. Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, so, previously, our square registers at each of the branches and at Maine, utilized one passcode for everyone. And when we looked at that, we said that's not a strong enough internal control. So, basically, we have already implemented that each employee that is responsible for, the cash registers, the square registers, we get their own unique individual passcode. The passcodes are not shared among staff, and we can then track transactions, as we do with our daily sheet, which we already do. And we would be able to see if there's anything going on, which we don't expect and have not seen. That's not why we changed the policy, but, we can then be able to see what's going on with each individual, employee. And so, we just have updated the, internal controls document, so to show this new policy.
In general, I think the manual is pretty comprehensive, so thanks for that. I worked on an internal controls policy that wasn't, so.
That was one of the first things Jeanette and I looked on when she started here, is this policy. So, I
Questions?
love a good internal control.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's what makes sense. I think that just makes sense.
Kind of blew my mind that we only have one.
Protect everybody.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So move.
All in favor? favor of approving the interim controls change, say aye. Opposed? Okay, the policy passes. Next, director's contract, Dr. Curtis.
Nicole and I met with, our attorney and, Stephanie and Alan Joyner. So, we revised contract for the president. I asked last year that the contract be looked at earlier. Done that, and Myra has, worked on it. This was started in July 1.
Can you highlight any significant changes?
It's a 3 year, with the renewal,
5 year,
5 years,
with a 3 year.
5 years renewal. It is, it works.
I think the primary change is the severance package, if there's a termination without cause. And then the term, my current contract is 3 years, so the 5 plus 3 is new as well.
He thought it was important that. In this position, to see us through the next several libraries. With renovations and all that, and we don't want her to go out there and go someplace. Oh my God. But it was also the.
I would never look at
There
it.
is,
I like a little heat and sunshine, but I also like.
Not totally, but the idea was that we have some consistency. For the next, not only for her, but for the staff. We took into account the staff. We see the visibility of the library, we see the impact it had on the community, and we don't want to change. So this way we have some stability for the next 5 years, for sure. That gets us through all the changes that are going to happen in the library. And then there's a new renewal for 3 years.
Well, thank you very much, Marcia, for your work. So do I have a motion? Okay. Second. All in favor of approving the contract, say aye. Opposed? All right, contract is, thank you.
I actually love it here, so.
Good. Okay, the next item is not an action item, purchase of real property.
Okay, so those of you that have been on the board, remember that, I can't remember the month, but there was a property behind, the Tut Ranch, that was up for sale, and we brought to the board to be able to purchase that property. At, a point in the process, that, property, negotiation did not go through. And so we did come to the board and say, if it ever comes back up, we would, look into the property again. The property is again up for sale, and it is. We have put a offer on the property, which is the offer is a better offer for us, probably not for her. But, we just want to make sure that the board is aware that we are again looking at this property. And that any of the documentation that the attorney has created, we're still finalizing anything, that those would need to be updated and finalized at that point. Yes,
So you're saying that the valuations went down, so therefore the profit, our offer went down?
the valuation didn't go down, but we felt that we could come back with, a different offer still within that, within the range that we were able to work with.
She couldn't sell it.
Given the cost of attorney fees and.
Yeah, and we looked at attorney fees, we already had dollars in attorney fees, appraisals, we already had money in the property. right?
So
So
everybody,
we-
so was that accepted then?
Yes. Yeah, we were just waiting to finalize some other documents.
It's a final negotiation.
Yes.
Now, so.
So is it our intent initially just to hold the property and then run it? We don't have any current, or do we have any?
Well, Tud is on the 2027
Okay,
plan list, so.
so right now we would just hold it and.
Right
we'll
now,
have
we
to
just
run
hold it.
And run it out. So,
I don't know. The opportunity to gain land at a landlocked
No, I
branch
agree.
is really,
I thought it was fun. to do
doesn't
it,
come up
put together.
often, so we'll see, and for whatever reason, we can't move forward with an expansion or some other use of the property, we talked about park space, or like, natural space, we talked about lots of different things. We can always sell it again. So,
Can you say that again?
What's the contract price?
So right now the offer is 95,000. 105 is the highest we could go. If I only could.
All right, any questions on that item? Other business? No business? Do you have any visitors? No. Okay. So next we will have the strategic planning updates. Okay, she is.
Community Services Senior Manager.
She's been working on our literacy initiative, which is, materials and also, ways in which we might be discovering. Oh my gosh, what is happening?
Programmatic initiatives related to our strategic plan goal of literacy. I will try to project as much as I can. So begin. So the two I will talk about today are book delivery and innovative book access. So to begin with book delivery. My team and I had the opportunity to go to the Association of Bookmobile and Outreach Services Conference in Indianapolis this past fall, where we were able to meet with other outreach professionals and learn all about the kinds of work that they do. And we also got to experience the joy of a place called Asphalt Alley, which has an array of different bookmobiles. And so we started to think, what if we got a bookmobile? So here we are dreaming on the next slide here, in one of our favorites, the New Mexico State Library bookmobile. And as we started thinking through the various considerations for getting a bookmobile, we came across a few things to think through. The purpose, what is the purpose of getting this bookmobile? What kind of vehicle should we get? What considerations for the vehicle need to be made? What kind of collection would be offered on the vehicle? Where would we go? What sites would we visit? How would we staff the vehicle and the services we provided it? And also, of course, publicity. So, in considering our purpose for the vehicle, we would really aim to reach patrons who can't or won't come to our physical buildings. There are a lot of reasons patrons can't get to us. Sometimes they lack their own transportation. Sometimes they're physically unable to leave their homes. Sometimes they're just too busy. There are caregivers who are juggling many things, and it's just really hard to leave the house. Sometimes they just don't want to leave the house if they've had a long day, and it's just one other chore to walk out the door. So we're hoping to go with them. We would serve patrons in our service areas specific to the townships that we serve, and we would hope to increase literacy through library card signups and books. We would provide social interaction. We can park out in an apartment complex parking lot so they can come talk to us. They may not see people very regularly or have person-to-person interaction, but they can come talk to us in the bookmobile. And it would foster engagement with the library overall through positive experiences with bookmobile. Bookmobile is really exciting. So if you see it in the neighborhood, you're going to want to go outside and say hi and interact with it. So the different types of vehicles, there are many different types. Richer vans, cutaways, which are the food truck-like vehicles, step vans like UPS delivery vehicles, and all the way up to coaches and buses, which get really, really big. Our favorite style is the Sprinter van, pictured here on the right. There is a lower cost for those are the most economically priced vehicles, and also the easiest to purchase and retrofit, which is what we've moved toward. And they do not require a commercial driver's license to drive, so they can be driven by multiple staff members, which is nice too. So we're aiming for that model. There's just some things to think about in regards to vehicles. Generators, we need power, lifts, ramps, shelving, counter space, the maintenance of the vehicle. Is there somewhere in town that can storage for the vehicle? Parking, on-site visits. Will the vehicle fit in the parking available at various sites? The kinds of licenses required to drive it, and also emergency plans. What happens if it breaks down, and do we have kits available on the vehicle to staff know what to do if something goes awry? For the collection, we would work with our collection services department to build a collection specific to the bookmobile. That could perhaps be an expansion of a collection we're working on right now with the book bike. This summer, we plan to take our book bike, which we've had for some time, out into the community to check out books from it, which would be a first for us. So expanding on that and creating a collection specific to mobile services. We would offer popular materials for all ages. And as we get to know what people are interested in and looking for, we can narrow it down from there. And we would be able to circulate these materials by having Wi-Fi available to hotspots on the vehicle. Some sites that we could visit include a lot of sites we already visit: community centers, parks, churches, senior centers, preschools, after-school programs, assisted living facilities, apartment complexes, and transitional housing. Leading into the partnerships we already have, pictured here is a program at Howard Park. So we take the vehicle out to the park and pop up the awning and engage with our patrons there, and be a great visual that people could see from, I don't know, how far away am I?
Across the park.
Across the parking lot. And say, hey, that looks cool. We're gonna go check that out. And also in books, school book fairs and literacy nights. For staffing, this would be housed in our community engagement department, which falls under our community services umbrella that I lead. It would be coordinated by our outreach coordinator, Jay Bush. It would be driven by outreach staff, some of whom are pictured here. We have several staff that can use the vehicle as part of our outreach toolkit. It would be integrated into what we already offer and plan to offer going forward. We would plan to schedule monthly visits and would aim for afternoon stops in most cases, as those work best for what we were at the conference. Let's see, okay, this is exciting. There are lots of cool ways we could publicize it. One idea that came up during the conference that we really liked is the idea of community-driven design. Giving patrons some parameters, they could help us select mood boards for the style of the bus, the colors, and so on and so forth. The wrap design, what does that look like? And also maybe select a mascot. So this is an example from the Aurora Public Library where they picked a fox as the mascot. So that could be fun. And of course, we'll have a big reveal, big kickoff event, and tour around So our vision, this is what we would hope for. We're in the very preliminary stage of this, but we really like this design from a library in Virginia that is a Sprinter van. So it's one of the easier ones to drive around. It has the awning that we can offer services under. There are mobile carts that come off of the vehicle. We would aim to get a ramp, and we would serve people from outside of the vehicle rather than having them come on board. One more thing I'd like to give you a quick update on is some progress in the Innovative Book Access Initiative. We have been looking at the possibility of purchasing automated library vending machine, which is an independent mini library, looks much like that would extend library services to new locations. These machines provide check-in, check-out, and holds functions, just like a service desk, with use of an RFID tag. And they can store up to 200 items, and they can be accessed around the clock. So as long as patrons can get to the machine, they can use it. So one we're looking at in particular is a Winso with cabinet. We work with Winso already on our sorters. And some sites we're considering are community centers, parks, senior centers, shopping centers, maybe travel hub. And our plan would be to start with one of these and see how it goes. This would
Can I
also
ask a
have.
question right in the middle of this?
Sure.
To access this, would we just type in a number or will we all need new library cards?
You can use your current library card, or you can either scan it or type it.
Oh, I was gonna say, my library card is old card, 40 years old.
Oh, gotcha.
If
Good
it,
number then,
if it
probably.
works
Put it on
here,
your phone.
if
Put it
it
on your
works
phone.
here, it'll work there.
Okay,
Mhm. Yeah, would use the same system. Yeah, it would also hold popular materials for all ages, everything we go on. And would be curated by collection services. So those are some quick updates, some things we've been looking at in terms of book delivery and data book access. Yes.
How much is the cost of the truck?
Great question. So to purchase a Swidger van and have it custom built as a bookmobile, it's about 200,000. But if we purchase the vehicle and then retrofit it, it'd be much less.
Is there an EV version?
There are electrical
Sure.
options. Yes, we will consider it once we get to that stage. We're not quite there
You
yet.
should be able to get some information based on our delivery.
Yeah,
Could, automobile house.
yeah.
Believe it or not, it was pulled by horses.
Yes.
Nonetheless, that leads me to believe that a very similar presentation to this is probably done 60 years ago, so.
Probably.
What happened to the last one? I guess that would be an important question. Why did it go?
That is a good question, and others might have more knowledge than me. My understanding of it is that it was very large. It was one of the larger vehicles that was more difficult to maintain, and that over time, the cost of maintaining the vehicle did not, it wasn't worth keeping up. Is my understanding of it, but anyone would like to elaborate on that.
And it was sold to, I think it was Darien, Buchanan Public Library, so they repurposed it after us.
It was part of a department that was eliminated all at once. A number of different services were part of that, not just the bookmobile. And my understanding, though I was not there, was that it was special services. And so there was kind of like, it was like a mismatch of all these different little other things that we did. And the idea was, let's get rid of all these little disparate things. And that's when they brought in Studio 304, replaced that.
Still think somebody made a decision we don't need it. It's not doing what we, there was a negative, and I'm not thinking,
Sure.
I have no opposition, I'm just
Yeah,
asking, why did it fall apart?
And I think the cost is one of them,
it was a bus.
and I think, yeah, it was big. One of the things I'm excited about for this is that we have a gap in services, particularly when it comes to assisted living facilities. And this would help us serve that population really quite nicely. In addition, I mean, we already go and set up at Fusion Fest or whatever in a table, but to have this sort of smaller version of Bookmobile would be nice for those, but I also think that assisted living, nursing home, those people who really can't get out, for us to be able to go to them would be beneficial.
I'm not opposed to that. I just want
Yeah.
what-
The why.
Somebody learned something along the way that maybe we
Or-
can learn something from.
And in terms of soft marketing, being at festivals, it just reminds people that libraries are more than internet access. They really still are books.
Yeah, and I do think part of that was the driver's license needed, and to maintain that staff person on the larger vehicle is difficult. Not everybody wants to drive that big one.
I was at a neighborhood farmers market in Grand Rapids last
Yeah.
summer, and they had a very similar bookmobile setup. It just like the different vendors. One of the vendors was their local library, and it was one of the most popular areas. They did have, by the way, a fan that was hooked up to the generator, So it was summertime, so it was cool underneath.
Get people
that.
over.
You might want to think about that, but anyway, but it was, they did a story time, they had chalk for kids to do, street art and all that sort of stuff, but it wasn't just children. There were adults that were coming, they were able to sign people up for cards and just advertising the programmatics of the Grand Rapids Public Library, and it was very well received, and so based on that experience, I think I can see, in addition to seniors, I could also see, lots of other creative uses for it in the community.
I have a question. You said you were at the Fusion Fest. City festival. Our smaller festivals and children are able to request it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I've done several that I've been across with that it might be really cool to add to what they do.
Yeah.
Last year, so.
Yeah, and there's already a page on, what page is it on the website where people can request outreach for a tailor to come and set up her table and.
Yeah, it's through our services page. We have an outreach request for it. So please fill that out. I can show you where it's at. Yeah.
So it would be stored for part of the year.
I'm not.
You can still go out. Good, yes. So one benefit to using it is to carry mobile carts that can roll off is that we can roll them off into a lobby. So we can still do winter visits, so that we can still use it when the weather is not as cooperative. Not planning on it, but.
So, you mentioned, deciding where and if they should go. And Stephanie, you mentioned there was a gap in assisted living. So I'm curious about, first of all, how do you know that?
We don't do anything right now.
Okay, and so then I'm just wondering what kind of a needs assessment you might be thinking about to figure out.
Yeah,
where.
that is the next step. It, in regards to the vending machine in particular, that's the next step to make sure that if we are starting with one, we can pick one strategic site that's going to benefit us in the community.
And I will say the lead time for the mobile library is about 1.5 to 2 years. So once we order it, it's going to be a while before we see it here in town. There's a real lead time.
Is there a local vendor, local, I don't know, help with that, like, or somebody that can do?
They're so custom.
I believe that if we were to buy a Sprinter van, a lot of those models are Mercedes, and we do have to be in town and service it. For vans.
To help us purchase it.
Oh, to purchase it. Okay.
There any of the places that. So where they retrofit trailers and things, and they be able to help do that, something more local, so they don't have access.
There was a vendor in that was local, but I cannot.
It's just the line,
Right,
it's the line for them,
Right.
it's fairly long,
Right.
as well as the time it takes to build them. So, but we'll get it ordered this year. And then we'll see where we are in the queue.
So this is a go.
We had planned for it in our capital investment plan.
All right, any other questions for Mel?
I would just think that there's a real opportunity here that this could be partially, if not fully funded through the community. I can see a lot of folks in the community that might get by, might make, the TCU, the Barnes and Thornburg, whatever. There could be some real opportunities. The community foundation might want to do something with it. Anyway, just throwing that out. I'm sure you guys are thinking about that already. But I'd be happy to help out with that if there's anything. I think we could do it.
Thank you, Mark. Okay,
Okay, moving on to our next library board meeting dates. The 28th, the 19th of May, and the 24th of June.
Do I have a note that the May one is in North Liberty? Yes.
And the June one is adjourned.
Yes.
Madam President,
When we get the board packet, we probably need to have a flash.
We'll all be here.
just so everybody's aware, the Dream Center, the Margaret King Dream Center opens April 4th. And I've been in the building 3 times, and they keep talking about the library has a space in the building. And I was like, all right, so there's a space in there, if I'm correct, there's a space, I've seen the space underneath the stairs.
We're working with them primarily on
Right.
technology.
So that, first of all, there's a march from Village Hair Center to the space on April 4th, starting at 10 o'clock. It's a fabulous facility. Most expensive facility I've ever been to. Unbelievable. $27 million for it. But there's all kinds of space. They keep talking about the library. I go in there. I get really
They talk
excited.
about the library because we're the library.
I know.
Everywhere I go, they say, why haven't we been to the library?
The library's coming, and I was like, oh, it's not, no. If you was able to go, but our name is out there. And so, it's a beautiful, beautiful facility. Just, 2 gymnasiums, it's huge.
Long overdue.
Long overdue, long overdue. And nothing but glass. The old one was solid. This was all glass. Just really sharp. So our name is, in the center. I'm like, I want to acknowledge that right now.
Then we have discussed the possibility of vending machines.
Yes, that's one of the sites we're considering, the vending machine.
I'm done.
Yes. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?